Welcome to the Summer of Best Ball with yours truly, Justin Herzig. It is August 25th. We are exactly 2 weeks away from the start of the NFL season. All the people who have been holding on to those best ball drafts, now's the time to start unloading them. For the next 2 weeks, we'll still continue hosting these best ball streams, bringing on some special guests every Tuesday, every Thursday, live on the ETR channel, hosted in partnership with the Owners Club, a new way to play fantasy football. Also, just want to give everyone that heads up, let people know that everyone who signs up for the ETR Draft Kit Pro will still get that free $10 in Underdog. Comes with best ball rankings, content, season-long Dynasty coverage, everything you need. Even if you already have an Underdog account, you'll still get that free $10, no strings attached. And once you get the Draft Kit Pro, head over to the Underdog Content Hub on ETR, claim that $10. And if you're new, promo code ETR will still get you that $100 deposit bonus. And now, with us this afternoon, the former editor-in-chief at Numberfire, the creator of the Late Round Fantasy Strategy. You probably know him from his podcast, those quick 15-minute hitters. You can check him out at his new venture, lateroundfootball.com. Mr. JJ Zachariason, how are you doing today?
What's up, man? How are you? Thanks for having me.
Well. No, this is exciting. I love the setup you have going on now. And I guess, hey, when you go off and you go with a new venture, you got to go with all the branding, get the setup nice. Looks good.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Got the little thing right above my head here now. You gotta promote. I'm thinking about getting a forehead tat at some point, with Late Round Fantasy Football, just to have the promotion going 24/7.
I like it. Maybe start with like a holographic image or something. Yeah. It can be the reflections. Maybe we can at least get the rub off tattoos to begin with.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
So 2 weeks from now to the rest of the season, what does that look like for you?
Man, just I have my draft guide that I published, and I'm updating that each week. So a lot of that going on, and just a lot of shows, hopping on a lot of podcasts and stuff, and getting ready for that. And just really just reading news and making sure that all my T's are crossed, and my I's are dotted. There's just a lot of stuff going on right now that we expected, that we didn't expect, and it's one of those times where you just have to try to react as rationally as you can to some of the news items that are out there. It's the hardest thing to do, I think, as during draft season.
I mean, if we look at what's been kind of the hot topics, we've got a 4th round wide receiver going ham in Green Bay. We've got a 6th round running back trying to steal the job in Kansas City. Like, has this been the most lack of news worthy offseason in a while?
Yeah. And I mean, knock on wood, but we haven't had like a major injury, I think that's what's driving this the most, is that typically like we've seen like 1 or 2, around this time happen, and then has this like this domino effect on other players and such. And, like last year with the Ravens backfield, who are we drafting? How are we approaching this? And then they had like multiple ACLs and stuff. And there's just usually chaos. And that, I mean, thankfully, I'm glad that this is happening, but we haven't had that kind of chaos. And then, as you noted, we have guys like Romeo Doubs doing what he's doing, and Isaiah Pacheco doing what he's doing in Kansas City. And that's just kind of taking the limelight fortunately from the lack of injuries going on.
Yeah, because it seems like, obviously like the Tyron Smith news that we just got today, like that's going to have substantial impacts to the Dallas offense as a team. Fantasy-wise, it's still not as noteworthy as a Cam Akers injury that we saw last year.
Right.
And then we are starting to see, I think some extension of injuries where it's not so much like hey, some major thing season ender happened, but like you have some hamstrings that are coming up. You've got some just no shows in practice that we're trying to learn a little more. I do think it's good to, and the ETR guys are doing a fantastic job like monitoring this, but keeping tabs as you go into your no longer just best ball, your actual home leagues. This information is important, but yes, we are definitely going to overreact when there's a media cycle pushing out that, hey, there's not actually that much happening.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't remember as many like crazy like season-ending injuries happening so late in the season to like really good players as we saw last year, whether it was Godwin or Michael Gallup or OBJ, and all these guys just went down. So now we're in this position where like we're trying to trust doctors and read what people are saying about these injuries, and it's just tough. Like, it's a tough position to be in because we as analysts of fantasy football and football, we don't know the injury side as well because we're not doctors. So we're really having to take some other people's word for it. And it's just sort of this like back and forth, 1 week I like this guy who, 1 week I love Chris Godwin. The next week I'm scared of Chris Godwin. And that's just kind of how the cycle has been this offseason.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think 2-3 years ago, there was a set pattern for you tear an ACL. It's like 9-10 months.
Yeah.
You have like an Achilles. We understand what that was. then the past year or two has really kind of tilted things with how quickly we've seen players, especially Cam Akers, even though it wasn't 100%, but like still coming back so quickly. And I mean, maybe the ACL started with Adrian Peterson when he came back for that year so quickly, but either modern medicine, recovery, surgery, like things are evolving, especially with that Achilles. And so now we're trying to almost, it's a little guesswork and like, well, we've seen these guys do it so well. Like, is this going to have this quick a recovery? Like Logan Thomas might actually like not going to be on the PUP. That injury feels like it just happened. And like historically, that should be another 2-3 months. It's interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, we are here to draft one of the $2 million, $1 million, something with $1 million after it for the Best Ball Mania. As I get that set up, I think you've got a fun little game that chat loves. Let's do 2 truths, 1 lie.
All right. First item here. I'll say I think that David Montgomery this season is a fantastic value. That's the first item. Second one, I think that both Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard are actually good picks at their ADP. And then the third one is that Elijah Moore is my highest rostered best ball player so far.
Okay. So we got D-Mont as a value. We got the Cowboy running backs, both great picks at their spot right now. And then we've got Elijah Moore as your most owned player, most owned wide receiver.
Highest rostered wide receiver, yeah.
Highest rostered wide receiver. Okay. Let us know, chat. If it is for the Twitter ecosystem brand, I think D-Mont being the highest value would definitely be the most contrarian. And but I don't know, the Dallas one's tough. Like especially with the Tyron Smith news that just came out today. Hard for both of those to really hit value if the team's not going to be really clicking on all cylinders. Let's see. We've got D-Mont here. We've got a lot of people. We got a couple of people saying 2. Everyone believes you with Elijah, but which one is it between D-Mont, Dallas, or is it a wild card?
Yeah, the lie here is the David Montgomery one. I mean, for a lot of reasons. I think that people are making a lot of assumptions about his workload just in general this year. He was second in snap rate last year at running back, first the year before that. I don't know if that's going to repeat. Khalil Herbert was better than David Montgomery in a lot of efficiency metrics last year, and he was sick. I mean, he was awesome whenever he got the call last year too. He's the only running back to rush for 100 yards against Tampa Bay. So I'm just not really into David Montgomery. Obviously his ADP's fallen, over the last month or so, but I haven't really been into him. The Dallas one, I of course, the injury is going to impact things a little bit, but I would expect that to impact ADP to some degree as well. I'm not drafting them on the same team, to be fair, to be clear. I see scenarios for both these guys. Like Tony Pollard to me is someone who
Cooper Kupp or Justin Jefferson. What do you want to go with? Let's
go Justin Jefferson.
All right, cool. Justin Jefferson has passed Cooper Kupp by a full pick more recently.
The Zeke thing though, the Zeke and Pollard thing, like it's really just about the contingent upside of Tony Pollard if something happens to Zeke. And Pollard, where he's drafted, is really being drafted like close to projection in general. And so it's not like you're getting nothing from him where he's going, but then obviously the upside's there if Zeke, if something were to happen to Zeke. The other thing, I've done a lot of research on middle round running back breakouts. And one of the things that I found is that middle round team RB2s. So like what Tony Pollard is for Dallas, and that's by ADP. So, Tony Pollard gets drafted after Zeke. You have, historically you had like Tariq Cohen getting drafted after Jordan Howard in Chicago, that kind of stuff.
James you're looking at middle Fournette last year.
Yeah, right. If you're looking at middle round RB2s, the RB1, when they have RB1 teammates going in the middle rounds, those RB2s exceed expectation at a pretty nice rate. Austin Eckler is another example of that when Melvin Gordon was holding out a handful of years ago in LA. And so, Tony Pollard is just one of those backs again this year where, a lot of that has to do with the fact that, the running back dead zone is the running back dead zone for a reason. It's really the fact that these running backs are being pushed up ADP wise because of opportunity, not necessarily because of talent. And if there's a middle round running back from that same team being drafted in the middle rounds, that tells you that middle round running back's probably talented himself to really compete and push for touches. I don't know if that's really going to happen to like an insane degree with Zeke or not. I wouldn't expect it. I still think Zeke is going to get enough work from a projection standpoint, which is why I think he's still a fine pick. But I do think that historical ADP and the fact that Pollard's going to have a receiving role, and the fact that he could just dig in a little bit more, and then he has that upside if Zeke gets hurt. That's why I'm still into Pollard.
I think that's completely fair. And I think maybe the tangential, the complementary piece here there as well is you still want to be going after a good offense. So
Yeah.
if it is two middle guys that like are still on that bad offense, and maybe that's the David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert. And maybe you say Khalil Herbert is actually going late enough that it's okay, and that's probably fair. But at the end of the day, it's still Chicago. And like when David Montgomery had his huge games last year, it happened because of two reasons. One is he was being used in the passing game like crazy. I think he was getting something like 6-7 targets a game. And that stretch at the end of the season, those 4, 5, 6 games were some of the easiest opponents possible. And so it's just kind of a perfect storm for him with virtually no competition from Khalil Herbert in those games, getting his pass down work and high touchdown efficiency just because of how bad those opponents are. Those aren't reasons we should be drafting him this year.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, like Montgomery, not as much anymore where he's dropped and fallen a little bit, but like where he was going like a month ago, it was basically like, I mean, everything needed to go perfectly for him from a usage standpoint. Like people were assuming that he was going to get the exact same usage that he had been seeing, back last year and the year before that. But situationally, it's pretty horrible. I mean, the offense could be bottom 5 in the league pretty easily. One of the worst offensive lines in the league. There's just not a lot going for him favorably. And a lot of people will look at like mobile quarterbacks and say, oh, they open up lanes for their running backs, et cetera, et cetera. Running backs are generally a little bit more efficient when they have mobile quarterbacks, but they usually don't. Number one, they're sharing some touchdown equity with the quarterback, in the red zone. But number two, mobile quarterbacks tend to not throw to their running backs as much either. So there's that as well.
Yeah. And I think the way that Dave Montgomery does beat his value is he fends off Khalil Herbert. Maybe that Khalil Herbert injury is a little more serious or whatever it is. 2, he also is heavily used in the passing game because they only have Mooney and Cole Kmet really elsewise. But I think those two things, and then you still need to have some level of overall efficiency of the offense. It's a stretch, especially with how bad that offensive line also is.
For sure.
All right, coming on back here. Oof.
Aaron Jones would have been nice.
That would have been nice. Now we're in it's kind of that little ugly spot. You really just got to take some stands. What are you thinking?
I'm cool with Fournette. He's sort of like the last stand at running back before I get a little bit iffy with it, where you're basically forced to go more zero RB. I usually go anchor RB, just generally, especially from a spot like this. I would have liked Aaron Jones though for that correlation and such.
Week 17 would have been great. Plus a little ADP value.
But I'm cool. I'm still cool with Fournette here.
Okay. So we'll grab Lenny there. I mean, you can see, between that Lenny, Evans, and Andrews, I like all three of them. I've got pretty decent exposure to kind of just fits for who's falling when you've got this early pick. You start seeing these kind of tier breaks. What is your ideal starts been? I know you said you've been doing a bunch of these underdogs and such. And like, is it, you start with that hero. What are you then trying to do after that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. If I can get a decent enough wide receiver in the first, I like the second round running backs a lot. So I'm typically going like either RB or I'm going wide receiver running back. I haven't gone with a Kelsey. Haven't really drafted Andrews that much. I haven't gone with like that early tight end, like that early of one as frequently as I've gone. I mean, obviously Waller's dropping a little bit because of the injury now and such, but Kyle Pitts at times drops to decent spots too. He'll fall into the 4th at times. That's when I really like to gobble him up. But so that's generally the first couple rounds for me.
All right, Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, the top of this from a ranking and ADP stand. Favor either of those or want to go a little off the board?
I think T's fine. I mean, if you want the 17 correlation, you could go DJ. I have ahead of Tyreek in my rankings.
Okay, sounds good. Grab some T. Higgins here. And I think so. T. Higgins himself, with what we've seen that offense, obviously has the ability to produce. And then I think that contingency value, if someone was to happen to Ja'Marr Chase, like T. Higgins literally could be top 5, top 3 type wide receiver. With this team where I think, are you looking to kind of then say, hey, we're going to grab Burrow? We'd have to reach on him a little because his ADP is 75. And I think our pick would be 72. Let's see, 70. Okay. Yeah. So not too much of a reach. You can basically get him before the Ja'Marr Chase guy has to crazily reach. Or are you even starting to think about QBs at this point in the draft?
Yeah, I mean, really, I'm lower than the market on Burrow this year. Just in general, I just think from a projection standpoint, it looks a lot worse than people realize. And I think that from an ADP standpoint, he's where he is on these, within this format because people are reaching for stacks just in general. So I'm more inclined to hopefully get the bottom of that mobile quarterback tier around that spot if one of them drops, as opposed to forcing the issue with Burrow. But if Burrow falls enough, then I'm still totally cool with it. But obviously we want the stack. We want to, I just don't like forcing it as much just because I do have a pretty clear tier break from some of those elite mobile guys to a guy like Burrow. Whereas I think that like Burrow, I'm getting the same kind of production with a Brady or a Russell Wilson.
I mean, I guess it is the brand here. Let's discuss. So when do we start going with late round QB? You mentioned you have like your, elite guys. Is it Kyler? Is it Jalen? Are we including Trey? And then after that, is that literally the tier break or what are you looking at?
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of Trey, fortunately, before the big spike happened. But yeah, I mean, like that's the group from an elite standpoint. I think who have like real top 2, top 3 type upside. And then there's that break, and I'll get those more pocket guys. I really like Russell Wilson though, just in general. He's also really easy to stack because I'm often getting like a Sutton or Judy or whatever. I kind of view it in just like in groupings and in tiers like that. And I'm often going to get players at the bottom of their tier because that's how you extract the most value. And so I have that top tier of the dual threat guys, the middle round guys. So I'm not going to force it obviously if I don't have a stack, but I'll try to wait a little bit to get the bottom of that tier. And then you sort of get lumped into that like Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr type tier, and I'll maybe pick a guy from there depending on what the team build looks like. So I'm just kind of grouping them up that way. I'm definitely not, I know the monikers there, and I'm late round QB and all that, but things have shifted a lot over the last couple of years in terms of predictability of the position, and how people are valuing the position now and properly valuing it with the rushing and such. And not only that, but in a best ball format, it's a little bit different too, because you can't really make up for any sort of mistake. You can't stream, et cetera, et cetera. So the replaceability and the value over replacement player is a little bit different within a format like this. So I'm more inclined to get a middle round quarterback. I almost do every draft that I do. I'll get at least one of those like middle round pocket guys, but ideally in the 6th or something like that, I'll get the bottom of that dual threat mobile quarterback tier.
Yeah. And so if you end up with one of those dual threat mobile, let's say Jalen Hurts, Kyler, and up, what are you thinking about with regards to that second QB? Is it fully stack based? Hey, I'm just looking for something that kind of fits. Is it, no, I do want to wait because of a value. I already spent a decent amount of capital on an elite QB. How are you thinking through that second player? Or is it you grab 2 late and you're like, let me just grab 3, but I'm not spending much capital on the last 2?
Yeah, I mean, I've done all the above. I would say that if there's a worthy stack, let's say I get Jalen Hurts and I don't have a stack yet, maybe I'll try to get Goddard later just to have something with him. But I will often get a stack if there's one available for me with those like pocket quarterbacks in the middle rounds. Otherwise, just see what's stackable, through like my go-to like cheap stack is always like Jacksonville, right? Like Trevor Lawrence is always just kind of sitting there. I like Christian Kirk this year, but even if I don't get Christian Kirk, you can get like an Ingram, you can get a Zay Jones, you can get a Marvin Jones, and just have something there as your QB2. Justin Fields is another guy. All right, I think we're on the clock again.
All right, so you got a falling Zeke, about almost a round past ADP. We have otherwise your choice of wide receivers if you wanted to go with a naked Lamar. A lot of options.
I'm kind of feeling Zeke here with the.
Okay.
Let's do it.
We have the old running back combination here. If you're going to take Zeke, I think this is the way to do it, is grabbing it with some value there.
Yeah, agreed. That's how I've approached it too. I haven't drafted a single 3rd round Zeke all off season.
Let's see. What was my average? Yeah, so 45.7. What we just grabbed him at 46. So right there as well. That's about on average where I've been taking him, and still don't have too much though.
Yeah.
The Darren Waller I love, but I mean, there is this just unknown about the injury aspect of day one. So he scares me, even though in this space is usually where it's like, hey, grabbing a Waller or Kittle feels pretty decent. I love Godwin. We do have Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
I mean, even Cooks, Deontay, like there's just a ton of really good Like, this is why I normally don't end up with a running back in this spot, is because
there's so much. Yes. This is like running the running back dead zone to a T, and it's formulated like so obviously this year within these best ball drafts.
Right. And so when the news that Dobbins actually started getting healthier was coming out, we were thinking initially, like, hey, he might actually roll up into this like late 4th round, but he stopped because there's so many just great guys you feel comfortable with, either tight end, QB, or wide receiver to bring him down.
I'm feeling Godwin. You feeling Godwin?
I love it. I'm all about it. I honestly wish this was much higher. My early thought on Godwin was going to be that he wasn't going to start week 1. And so it would have been, hey, all throughout preseason, we were going to get reports on that it's just going to take some time. They're going to take it easy on him with him, while the other younger players are going to be showing up in camp. They're going to be moving up. Like, you get all the other positive. But then that one report came out a couple weeks back that it was like, hey, Godwin looks great. He's not going to be on PUP. And that's when I was like, shit, okay, well, he's not going to be a value too much. So I got to start grabbing him, even if it is more expensive than I was hoping, but still a value.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. I was hesitant, super early on, just because there were some reports that he wasn't going to be ready until like mid to late October. And it's like, if you're going to take that on that opportunity cost, obviously, tournament style is a little bit different just because you're really weighing the final weeks and such. But yeah, I mean, I've been drafting him as much as I can in the 5th. He's a great value right now.
Yeah. All right. So looking through chat, a lot of people noticed, and I have 0% Justin Herbert in these tournaments. People saying that's my hottest take. I don't disagree with that. For me, it's because I haven't been taking too much Keenan or Mike. There's other receivers that I like there, specifically DJ Moore's even after ADP. And then others are reaching too high for Herbert to complete their stacks based off if I don't have those. Am I doing this wrong? Should I be having at least some? Well, how much do you have, do you think?
No, I don't know off the top of my head, but I don't have much at all. I'm definitely with you. It really has everything to do with cost. I mean, he's my QB2, I think, technically, but he's still in the same tier with these other guys. Like, I have Josh Allen in his own tier ahead of those guys. But even Josh Allen, I don't have a ton of. So, I'm looking at that next tier where I'm looking at a Ertz, Mahomes, Lamar, all those guys. And I would just much rather be pounding those wide receivers in the 4th and 5th as opposed to using one of those spots on Justin Herbert, who I think has replaceable production from a fantasy standpoint with some of those other quarterbacks. So I'm with you. And I mean, like, I've drafted some Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, more Mike Williams, but even still, it's like, I don't necessarily want to force that stack because I don't think it's necessarily optimal there.
Yeah, I guess so I've got 10% Keenan, 3% Mike Williams. But yeah, just 0 Herbert. And it just never, there's always so much more, so many other people that at that 45 spot, I'd be more excited about, knowing you can then also get Kyler, Ertz in that 59-60, or even, Trey Lance or some of those others that still have, I think, upside. I have Lamar as my number 2, I believe, or if I don't, it's extremely close, but I'm same idea there. That's all grouping, and you're paying for the top of that price if you are grabbing Herbert.
Yep, for sure.
All right, let's take a look. Anything else noteworthy with this draft?
Dawson knocked in the 5th.
Was it a stack? What are we looking at?
Looks like it. Yeah, looks like it's they were worried about Dawson going in the 6th or the 7th. Yeah.
Got to get your guy. I wonder if that was probably one of those queue issues where it's like, hey, I'm going to put Dawson Knox in my queue because I want to be ready. And then unfortunately, boom. Yeah. But people who are waiting on tight ends, Waller and Kittle owners, they love seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We got a 3 wide receiver start here, then going ETN and Waller. Overall, mostly looking pretty balanced. Greenlab going running back, and then 4 straight. Nothing crazy that I'm seeing really, other than obviously a one-off pick here or there.
Yeah. That ETN build looks pretty fun.
And so
not huge, not huge into Adams there, but still a strong.
Let's see. I'm trying to find that. There you go. Yeah, I mean, you're reaching a little on Devontae. Maybe the thought is that, hey, with this Waller news, that more valuable. I believe there's a rumor that somebody might be putting out their hot takes, and Devontae might be very, very high up in there. So, I mean, there is a very strong bull case and a very highly concentrated offense, and especially if Waller is more hurt than we were even imagining. But in my mind, no need to reach for that 7.
Yeah.
When you got Diggs or someone else. All right, we're coming on back. We've been going wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, flipping back and forth. I don't believe we're going to be taking a running back here unless
Probably
you wanted to convince me on A.J. Dillon. But
no, it's all right.
And there he goes.
I think he just won't.
Yeah. A lot more of the kind of second, third-year breakout guys here from a wide receiver. Do you have favorites, or what are you looking at?
Looks like my boy is gone. Is Elijah Moore gone? Yeah, I mean,
Elijah Moore, I think did go. Yeah,
I think he's gone. Yeah, I mean, I'm open. I'm really open to any. I mean, I've gotten a lot of Drake London even with the injury. I'm a little bit, you can usually get him a little bit later than now. Maybe he'll be there in the 7th for us. I mean, it's kind of a dead spot. I don't really have like a super strong lean here.
Do you want to grab Burrow, take that home, and then not much of a difference after?
Yeah, we could do it. it.
I would have gone Thielen if we had it because we have the Jefferson.
Yeah, I
would
agree.
have been a nice Minnesota stack going on there.
Yep.
And yeah, with the Burrow, like you said, I'm not huge on Burrow, but if I do have the QB and let's see, the other is we could have gone with the Brady for Godwin and Fournette. But then we still would have been crazily reaching. He's not, maybe if he falls back to us like on the way back. But
yeah. there's a chance that we see something.
Yeah. All right, Drake goes, doesn't upset me too much because all these wide receivers I think are pretty close. Right now it's also kind of dodging the injuries like Tony with the hamstring. Maybe he's going to fall a bit. What have you been doing with Hopkins?
I haven't been super aggressive. But I've been more aggressive in tournament because I'm still playing just regular also. Been more aggressive in tournament, but I'm just part of me is still a little bit worried about who he is as a player. Last year he saw his lowest target share per game that he's seen since his rookie year, his worst yards per route run since the Brock Osweiler days. They add Marquise Brown. Obviously they lose Christian Kirk, but Brown's a better threat. Rondell Moore, another year in, he's 30 years old. We don't see a lot of 30-year-old huge seasons. I get the allure and I get drafting him. It's just something that I think there is still some risk there.
You mentioned Kirk. This could be a Burrow Kirk stack. Devonta Strong as well. Anything or if we wanted a third running back, you'd go Elijah Mitchell. I haven't been doing too much of him.
I think Kirk is fine.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah. He's someone I think is just cheap volume, cheap production. Could really, I mean, he actually checks a lot of boxes too that I found with middle round wide receiver breakouts. We see a lot of middle round breakouts from 5th and 6th year guys. And a lot of that I think has to do with the fact that there's sort of like a survivorship bias there, where like if you're a middle round wide receiver and you're in your 5th or 6th year, you're probably a good wide receiver because you're still playing and people are still drafting you in the middle rounds, but also there's a change of scenery more than likely, right? Because they're done with their rookie deal. They either had a 5th year because they were a 1st round pick, or they just switch teams and switch environments because their rookie deal ran up. And so you see those guys actually come through more frequently than 3rd and 4th year guys do in the middle rounds by like 2x. And so I've been getting a lot of Christian Kirk. I think he's a really, really solid pick this year.
Interesting. Yeah. For me, the Christian Kirk is just the range of outcomes everything about that team is new. New coaching staff, new wide receivers, basically new running back. And when you have so many new variables, you have that wider range of outcomes and that chance to hit that upside.
Yep.
And when we're going to be grabbing, I think a Burrow Lawrence from a QB stack, like those two make sense from a complementary. If you do go with Christian Kirk, you can pretty much stack that entire team the rest of the draft if you want, combining with a Marvin Jones, Evan Ingram, Zay Jones aspect, like lots of easy pieces. And I compare it Dave mentioned hey, Devonta Smith is a smash. I completely agree. But when I'm grabbing Devonta Smith there, and I didn't grab Jalen Hurts earlier, and I'm not really trying to get New Orleans guys for that week 17 correlation, it just feels a bit of an outlier and hard to, we want to make as few bets as possible that we have to get right. And if we start doing one-off pieces everywhere, you got to get them all right, or just get that Jacksonville bet right.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love Devonta Smith. Again, I know I keep going to the studies and stuff, but 2nd year guys are awesome. Mentioned that with Elijah Moore. And there's so many good 2nd year wide receivers in the middle rounds this year that, I mean, whether it's Bateman, whether it's Amon-Ra, or whether it's Devontae or Tony, who was just had egregious ADP at the start of these drafts. And, unfortunately, but, we've seen the market correct itself quite a bit. There's just a lot of good second-year wide receivers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting with Philly as well, because we always talk about with Philly, they started last year, they wanted to pass, they went with that structure for around 6 weeks. It didn't work. They went to that very run heavy, and they were successful with the run heavy. Offseason happens, bring in AJ Brown. It seems like they want to have Ertz throw out more. They want to commit to that kind of pass action. But we saw that their bread and butter last year for the majority of the season that they defaulted on was that run. So you have to kind of make a bet one way or the other of which ways this offense is going to go. And for Devonta Smith to smash, you have to be correct that it's going to be a passing offense. I think that's a fair bet.
Yeah.
But if I'm making that bet, I want AJ Brown. I want Jalen Hurts. Though those guys have the opportunity also to smash. And so I want to kind of get at least one of those two pieces earlier on in the draft as well, and then pair that up with Devonta.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, Devonta Smith too. I mean, he had an unbelievably underrated rookie season. I mean, just from an efficiency standpoint, yards per out run standpoint, that was in an environment that wasn't necessarily, ideal. And so, I think people were just generally overlooking him as a player himself. It's easy to forget that he was still very, very good last year because he was just overshadowed by Waddle and Chase.
Yeah, no, very fair. All right. We have an interesting option coming up here. Let's see what Sam does.
Another dead spot.
Bit of a dead spot, but something could work out for us if
agreed. Yep.
Going with some Brady there. Because we do have the Leonard Fournette. It is not a bye week issue. We're looking at Brady and Jackson have that same. So yeah, we didn't have to count on it. But it's nice when it goes from 87 to 94. We had two of the pieces, so it was really only fighting with the person who had Mike Evans. Yep. So we will take Tom here. And we've got our two QBs. We've got two strong stacks going. Not too bad.
Yeah, it's an older team, but it's a fun team.
In this range, are you going for those wide receivers on the med teams, but have upside like Lockett, Claypool, Garrett Wilson, I guess Traylon? Or is it hey, this is that sweet spot for running backs that could have question marks but could break out?
Yeah, I mean, I've been going after the running backs more probably in this range. Some of them, it feels like it's been muddied a little bit over the last couple of weeks, just with Zach Moss entering the picture for Buffalo a little bit more, and that just kind of ruining that. And you could get Ramondre here before his spike happened. And so things have just shifted a little bit, but I don't mind going really either position. I'm really open-ended here.
All right, cool. Yeah, we've got options. We'll see what comes. I've definitely slowing down and backing off the Traylon Burks. I'm hoping that, I just got to eat this and hope that he actually does perform later in the season, but hard to chase that with all the news we're having right now. For me personally, it's Damian Harris. Two reasons here. One is from a GTO, from a strategy aspect. He's been getting drafted earlier on the offseason around 80 and has consistently been falling. So we're getting him at his best value. Yep. And second, the reports are looking like he and Ramondre are going to play very similar roles, taking that almost Singletary, Zach Moss, where they would interchange, or maybe it's the more Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams. But they're both going to have a pass-catching role in the way that their structure went on the field. Yep. And if that's the case, one, we already know Damian Harris is the favorite for those goal line touches with his 15 touchdowns last year. But even more so, if they do have contingency value, if Ramondre something was to happen to him and Damian Harris can actually stay on the field for 65, 70%, that turns into a top 10, top 15 running back.
Yeah. Yeah. Way easier. I have to go back and forth in my season-long managed league, approach to best ball. I mean, I hate to use the cop-out, but Damian Harris is the quintessential easier to draft and best ball player versus managed league. I mean, you want of course you want the pure upside with anyone in any sort of format. You just want the upside. So, which is why Ramondre is going well ahead of him now in these drafts. But, at the same time, from a managed league, we could see Damian Harris fall in the end zone and have a 2 or 3 touchdown game pretty easily. And if that happens week 16 and 17, then great. Right. But you might not have that confidence to actually start that dude, in your managed league. So Harris is someone that I am against getting in managed, but because of where he's dropping and where he's falling and how this is likely to shake out within that backfield, I think he's fine as a best ball pick.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because, and especially for Underdog half PPR, those touchdowns are
Right.
really important.
Yeah,
He can get those
exactly.
multi-touchdown games that
Yeah.
puts him in elite territory for that week. Um, but yeah, like if there actually is an injury, there's no James White. I mean, there's Ty Montgomery.
Yeah.
There's Pierre Strong. Like it's not
Yeah.
like there's a chance that Damian Harris could have an Sony Michel style workload from 2 years ago, where it doesn't matter how good of a player you are or aren't. When he's getting 25 touches a game, like that's really valuable.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, looking through chat, I see Happy Feet is having a nervous breakdown as he realizes Landry is no longer on Cleveland. It's okay, Happy Feet. We have been there. Best of luck in your draft. I see all people were mentioning maybe we could have gone tight end. Maybe we could have gone Hawkinson. Not a bad call for where we are on our team. I have not been getting too much Hawkinson.
No.
What were your thoughts have been there?
Hawkinson's probably my number one avoid at the position.
Okay.
I like Goddard straight. I think Goddard now has higher ADP than Hawkinson. So you're with me. Again, going back to some of the studies that the historical ADP studies that I've done, when you find middle round tight ends in general are just pretty bad bets. I mean, like the upside that you get in the double digit rounds versus, that round 6 to 9 range. The upside that you get from tight ends is really no different. So you can throw darts at those later round tight ends and get just as much upside. You're really drafting for floor with those middle round tight ends. And that's not really what we're aiming for in these sort of formats, in these type of formats. I don't mind Dallas Goedert. He's the one that I have gotten, but even like I'm still scared a little bit of like a Dalton Schultz, because I think Dalton Schultz is very much a floor play as opposed to a ceiling play. Because he's just, it's just a volume one. He's not really that athletic. He's not that efficient and all that. He's fine, but TJ Hawkinson, the other thing too, is that with tight ends, generally speaking, tight ends break out at a higher rate when they have quarterbacks who have really high ADPs, which makes sense because high ADP quarterbacks are usually better quarterbacks and they can get through their reads quicker and they can get to the tight end, which makes sense. And so Hawkinson has that going against him as well. Middle round tight ends who have had a quarterback drafted after QB 16 since 2011, who were not the first pass catcher being drafted from their team. I know that was a mouthful, but there's been like 17 or 19 of them since 2011, and only one of them were really just worthwhile at ADP. It was Zach Ertz with Carson Wentz because he was just peppered with targets. So I'm just really against. Sorry, we're up on the clock. I'm really against a TJ Hawkinson this year. I think we're gonna continue the stack. Yeah.
All right, so we got Russell Gage. Julio, I do like, but the thing is, from a pure draft strategy, I mean, my average ADP was 194. I'm not chasing him at 117.
That's exactly. Yep.
Give me Russell Gage, which is the exact opposite. Even though he hasn't been practicing, he's been hurt.
Yep.
Godwin and him maybe play a bit more of the same similar role. I don't think that's that much of an issue. I get it. But at the end of the day, Gage for 30% of the BBM was being drafted in the 7th round. We're now getting him later. Opposite would be with Julio.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Gage is that bad of a player either. Like I know that he didn't have the prospect profile and all that, but he really came on last season. He was really strong. He was good. And they went out, they gave him a decent deal. I think that he's not a terrible pick still at his this new ADP ever since they got Julio. I think he's fine as long in an environment like this where you're getting him in the stack.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, taking a look. We got Leonard Fournette, Ezekiel Elliott, Damian Harris. We do not feel that great about our running backs. I don't think we build a Rashad White on here because we have Lenny. Couple other options there. How are you thinking about Kenneth? Actually, how are you thinking about Kenneth Walker with all that hernia and just Seattle's offense?
Just scared. I'm just haven't really attacked Seattle very often. Just a really, really awful environment for them. Of these running backs, kind of intrigued by Carter. I really like Kenneth Gainwell. I've gotten a ton of Gainwell this offseason. Nyheim Hines is fine. I'm really open to any of those guys if we want to go that route, but I don't know if we can also go tight end. I think Ertz probably makes sense.
Zach Ertz, we're getting a round of value here. I think his slight injury concerns are what's getting to drop a little. But I'm happy with just taking that value there. And
another old guy, why not?
And the funny thing is with Zach Ertz, you're actually not drafting him for floor. You're drafting him for upside in the role that we've seen when he's healthy, where a lot of the tight ends in that area, you're drafting him for that floor. So maybe he's a bit of an outlier for best ball.
Yeah, and he's at like that fringe where you can hypothetically feel okay with 2 tight ends in a build like that, but you could pivot to 3 if you want to. He's sort of like at that like cutoff and that cusp.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because the tight ends that were going right after him, almost all of them have taken major hits in the offseason. So, like, Gesicki's one where no idea what's going on there. Will he even be a Dolphin? Would love to see him go to someone like Carolina. That'd be awesome. Irv Smith was going. He's dropped 20 picks with that injury, which I think is ridiculous. I absolutely love Irv. He's likely going to be there on week 1. We've got, who am I blanking on? Oh, Albert O with like, no one knows what's going on there.
No one.
Yeah. So it's just funny that like almost all those guys that were in that teens, 20s, 30s range are all kind of dropping. Maybe Cole Kmet's the only one who's had a positive news in that strong game last week.
Yeah.
All right, let's get a quick refresher on what our team is looking like. We got Burrow and Brady. Feel pretty good about just a 2 QB model here. Running backs are Lenny, Zeke, and Damian. Definitely need some additional, supporting cast there. Jefferson, T, Godwin, Kirk, Gage, with 3 of those. Three of those 5 being stacked with our 2 QBs. So feel pretty good about that. And then Ertz with, I think you're right, we'll probably end up with 3 tight ends there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think with Burrow too, we could always go like the Hayden Hurst route a little bit later with this build too. Yeah. I love going because like the forgotten tight ends with whatever quarterback you have, because it's just a very cheap and easy way to get a stack.
Yeah, and a lot of those are QBs that I've been kind of targeting. So like Hayden Hurst, well, I guess not targeting, but like you end up with the stack aspect. So Burrow with Hayden Hurst, Jacksonville with Evan Ingram.
Yep.
I don't have much Gerald Everett because I don't have any Justin Herbert. But like, if I am grabbing Stafford, I want to make sure I am pairing with him as many people as possible. It's just this thing. The immobile, the QBs that are really not going to get much on the ground, you want to make sure you're stacking them as much as possible. Because if Stafford is going to have a top 3, top 5 QB season, it's going to be because he's throwing 50-plus touchdowns. And in that case, you want to get as many of those mouths that he's feeding.
Yeah, and in the playoffs, I mean, it's not like unthinkable to think that Matthew Stafford could throw 3 touchdowns to Tyler Higbee. I mean, we've seen big games from him before. You just to be open-minded about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that last year, I mean, to be honest, it really did happen. But so the past couple of years with a Sean McVay offense, I've always said, like, I want to lean into that uncertainty because we've seen that he's going to game play for specific players, that he's going to scheme so that one player gets those 15-plus targets. And, there was that, 6-game stretch 2 or so years ago that it was Higbee at the end of the year. Then you used to see a bit of a ping pong back and forth between Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. And then last year, the difference was Robert Woods Cooper Kupp just took the entire season. But it's definitely fair to believe that, like, you may see a bit more of that ping pong between Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp, and maybe even some Tyler Higbee games mixed in.
Yeah, for sure.
I see a lot of Tunyon talk in the chat. Completely agree. Hoping that his if you're going to draft Rodgers, which I don't have that much of, but if you do, he's a fun. There's a lot of players you can stack with very late for him, and Tunyon feels like a great one.
Yeah, Rodgers is Green Bay's another team where it's like Jacksonville, where like if you didn't get anything, like the board didn't fall your way in the first 10 rounds or whatever, you can still get something from 2 quarterbacks that should be able to produce.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, we're coming back. Running back, I feel like this is kind of the end of a bit of a tier. Maybe if Madison falls to us, I don't know if you're buying the Pacheco hype.
Not at this price anymore. I mean, like it's gotten so. I mean, it's fine, but I was leading the charge very much so with Pacheco, but it was when he was completely free. So it's a different beast now.
It's interesting. So are you go with Madison here?
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. I'm okay with paying the price because it's not like all offseason people were getting him in the 18, 17.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, his ownership is like 2% probably from earlier. Yeah.
Exactly. So, yes, you are overpaying from a comparative to who else is on your team, but you are getting a level of uniqueness against the larger field of the tournament that I think is valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing too is like this, he's another player where from a managed standpoint, like people in like FFPC drafts have taken him in like the 6th and 7th round. Like it's just been out of control. Like when you're getting him in the double-digit rounds, I have a mailbag dropping tomorrow actually where I kind of rant about this. It's like people are like, should I buy into the hype on Romeo Dobbs or should I buy into the hype on, Kyle Phillips, whatever? And it's like, if the opportunity cost at this point in the draft is really, really small. Like these guys on this list, the chance of them being significant contributors is really, really small. They're gonna give us weeks and they're gonna give us some production, hopefully. But for them to be like true league winners, really small. So like from the standpoint of like Pacheco, he's in an environment where it's possible and he's going to get some work. So it's fine. I agree with you. It's more so like I can't believe it's gotten to the point where he, is now like this like legit middle round pick.
Right. And like maybe he should go 170, but you're not giving that much up when you're getting the uniqueness. Okay. So we have him at the top. We're in a bit of an ugly area around tight ends, unless there's someone you want to jump on. We do still need another running back. Are there a wide receiver here you like? KJ Osborne, Nico Collins, KJ Hamler.
I mean, I like the wide. I think we can go Pacheco though. It's fine.
Okay, cool.
But yeah. I mean, like I don't mind this wide receiver grouping either. Like I like Wandale. I've gotten a decent bit of Osborne with the 3 wide sets, but KJ Hamler I got when he was a little bit cheaper than he is now. I don't love that Nico's been rising as much as he's been rising either. But yeah, I don't mind this wide receiver tier overall.
Okay. If Robbie falls to us, we get that week 17 correlation and that one. I believe McKenzie already went. He would have been, he would have been going a little earlier.
Yeah, he's another guy that was easy to draft, a month ago.
All right. When we take a look at this team, we are pretty sure we're going to be grabbing 3 tight ends. We're pretty sure we're going to be staying at 2 QBs. Does that mean we're going to be 2-6-7-3 or 2-5-8-3? What are you thinking with these running back group? Or is it see what happens in the 18th round and decide then?
I think it's see what happens in the 18th. It's definitely fringe. I mean, I don't mind like in tournament style like this. I don't mind just having like the pure upside that we have with the last 2 that we picked. Like it's fine, but you got to get there obviously. So I think it's just kind of see what happens in the 7th or the 18th rather.
Yeah, and that's what we're really hoping with kind of the Zeke and Damian is we know that they're going to be on the field. We know that they're going to be able to contribute those kind of 12, 15 games regularly. You're hoping that one of those 2 season outliers season and, just kind of breaks out, or they can survive enough that Dalvin Cook goes down. You have Madison, Pacheco sees the actual starting role, maybe actually gets passed down work, who knows, but like finds his way into a dominant role.
Yeah, the Pacheco stuff's crazy, man. I I was into him. Like my prospect model liked him more than consensus, but so I was not jokingly touting, but I was touting him, but not
He's a
thinking
6th round running back.
Yeah, not thinking that this was going to happen. Like it would be idiotic for me to sit here and say that I thought that this would be the case and this is what's happening. But it is interesting. My prospect model had Isaiah Pacheco's top comp as Damian Williams, and Damian Williams crushed it in that Andy Reid offense. He has the speed score, he has the explosiveness. I think that's why they went out and they signed Ronald Jones this offseason, is because they want that explosiveness on the ground. That CEH, literally, that's what he can't do and what he doesn't do. CEH didn't have a single 20-plus yard run last year. And so, they go out and they draft and they see him sitting there in the 7th. They're like, yeah, I'm going to get Pacheco because he has this crazy weight adjusted 40. His vision issues are definitely there. Rutgers had a really, really bad offensive line though. So there's a little bit of that going, but Pacheco in college had a really underrated receiving profile. He was targeted a decent bit, given his size. That's another thing too, is I generally with these running back prospects, if you can find a bigger bodied guy who has a decent reception share in his offense in college, it's usually a decent bet. Ramondre Stevenson was that guy last year. Even AJ Dillon, everyone was like, oh, AJ Dillon is Andre Williams again. It's just, we're going to see this. Andre Williams caught 3 balls in college. AJ Dillon actually had a decent reception share versus how much they threw the ball at Boston College. So it's one of those things that I definitely try to look at is these bigger bodied backs who can catch passes. And we're seeing that a little bit with Pacheco. They might end up deploying him that way.
It's interesting. And we know McKinnon has struggles staying healthy. I don't think it's any question that McKinnon is going to start in that role as the pass catcher. That seems pretty just clear how they use him in the playoffs and how they want to use him. But if he can't stay healthy, that was the thing. When McKinnon was in the healthy, last year, he basically didn't play at all in the regular season. They didn't need him. And so if they actually try to get a full season out of him, he goes down. Maybe that's what they like more out of Pacheco is that hey, they know Rojo is never going to be that pass catcher. If Rojo's only a little better runner than Pacheco, Pacheco now gives you at least more versatility.
Exactly.
All right, coming back around. So done at QB. Okay. let's see. We still need some tight end support. We could use a wide receiver too. You mentioned Wandale. I think this is good value for him.
Yeah.
Let's see. Behind us, each has 2 tight ends, so we probably don't have to worry too much about getting sniped on a tight end.
Yeah. I'm cool with Wandale, and then we could always get like an Ingram or something if we wanted to, or if Higbee's still there, I'm down with Higbee.
Okay. That sounds good to me. Yeah. And we did not end up with Trevor Lawrence, so the Ingram
I mean, we have
noteworthy.
Kirk sitting there, and
we still might be able to get Hayden. It's probably hard to get Hayden Hurst to come up, but like these tight ends are falling.
Yeah.
Otherwise, wide receiver.
Nice.
Yeah, I agree there. Christian Watson, Van Jefferson, and Marvin Jones. Anything else stand out to you as an outlier?
I mean, I'm starting to draft more Watson just because of his ADP. I'm not like I didn't really like him that much as a prospect. So I'm not that surprised that Romeo Doubs is. I mean, I'm surprised that Doubs is doing this well, but I'm not surprised that he would be doing better than. I know Watson's been injured, but I wouldn't be shocked if that was just like the outcome of that environment. But I do think just where Watson's at, where he's being drafted, the upside is still there and worthwhile. Another wide receiver in this range, I don't know if he went or not, is Alec Pierce. I think he might have I think he just got drafted.
Just went.
Yeah. Pierce is another guy who didn't, he, like Watson, really athletic. So my model doesn't care about athleticism, just production. Yeah, let's go Higbee. And so didn't really like Watson, didn't really like Alec Pierce, but I think the Watson take is going to stand and feel, I'm going to feel good about it in a couple of years. But the Alec Pierce one, I just have a feeling that might bite me because he's getting a lot of love out of camp. Sometimes athleticism translates. He's a really good route runner, and he's likely going to have some opportunity there, immediately. So he's been someone in the late rounds that I've been targeting a decent bit this year.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like out of all of the rookies in camp, like he's probably gotten the least amount of national buzz. If you actually look at the reports in training camps, like they do look pretty good for him, but like you don't hear his name being referenced
no one
at
knows
all.
who Alec Pierce is. Yeah.
Right. And so he was second round?
Yeah, he was a second round draft capital. There were a lot of people,
receiver.
Yeah, there were the problem with Pierce is that his top comp in my model was Chris Conley. It's just like this insane athlete who just didn't have this production in college. But every once in a while, you see that athleticism really translate. Chase Claypool, it sort of worked out for him. I mean, we don't know for sure yet, but he's at least flashed in the NFL. And so it could still work out. And that's why the cost to acquire in redraft versus like Dynasty, it's just a lot easier for a guy like Pierce. Just because, you're going to have to spend like a second round rookie pick in Dynasty, or you're going to have to trade something substantial for him, more substantial. Whereas if you're in the 15th, 16th round, it's whatever. And so that's why, getting my exposure to Pierce that way in redraft this year.
Yeah. And so, I mean, Gesicki did fall quite far, 174 there. Jordan's referencing it. Do you buy any of this? Do you think there's a chance they actually trade him?
I mean, part of me, I haven't been very exposed to Gesicki, so part of me is like, I hope not. But I mean, it's possible. It's definitely possible. I mean, teams can use an athletic tight end like that who really, I mean, he's more of a wide receiver than a tight end, but a team could use him. So I'm not going to rule it out. But usually when these things pop up, nothing happens usually.
In the NFL, always wish casting for these trades, rarely actually come to fruition. And then when they do come out, it's the ones that you didn't even see coming.
Exactly.
So, all right, we're coming back. We're starting to get into this ugly tight end. Taysom goes, Hooper goes. We still do need one tight end. Hurst is still there. We'll see if he comes back to us. Looking like I have not seen Tyler Algier fall this far. Probably those reports that came out today that Damian Williams is running ahead of him in virtually every practice. And maybe that's the way that it should be. I've been down on him, which correlates with my very high Cordero Patterson takes.
Yeah, I've gotten a pretty wrong read on the Falcons backfield throughout the offseason. I don't mind. I mean, at first I thought I was going to be lower than consensus on Patterson, and I even wrote him up that way, but I've realized that I'm not, just based on where I've ranked him and stuff. We just generally don't see that profile like be league winning, just in general. But this circumstance and the fact that no one's emerged over the last month in Atlanta, like that's what needed to happen for CPAT to not really live up to where he's being drafted. And it just hasn't happened. And CPAT's ADP hasn't really like switched or changed as a result of it.
Yeah. All right. So we're in a place right now where there are no wide receivers we like. I think we'll probably end up with 7. Doesn't make sense to grab like a Raheem or a McKissick here, because these are kind of the best available if we know we're going to grab a running back.
I'm down with Eno. I'm down with Algier too. If we want to just take a chance and that he builds on the roll later in the in the season.
Very strong ADP value right there. Yeah. All right. So now we got to finish it off with a wide receiver and a tight end. Brevin Jordan could grab that Dulcich, could grab Likely. What are you thinking? Anyone jump out?
I mean, Brevin would probably be my one there. I mean, the only other thing I don't really want to do it though. There's like, you can go with a Tampa Bay tight end to get some correlation, but I just don't feel good about them. Yeah. But if we're going to go tight end, we got we're on the clock. Let's go Brevin.
All right, we'll grab Brevin here. Major tier break after him where you're grabbing one of the guys that's just not being drafted much. I am trying to get a little more Dulcich now with the Albert O news, where even though he hasn't played at all during the preseason, if you know that Albert O is not going to be getting not in their favor, then hopefully this season you'd think that Dulcich has that opportunity. People in chat were talking about the Likely situation. When is it too early to draft him? I don't think there is I think if you want him in the 16th, if you want him in the 17th, it doesn't matter because it's the same thing as the 18th, basically. Yeah. It's just, if you want to draft him, then go for it. I'm still kind of wishy-washy on it. But if Mark Andrews gets hurt, like he could be a, top 10, top 5, who knows, tight end just from what we've seen. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot working against him. He's not very athletic. Like, he didn't test very well. He didn't. And then on top of that, rookie tight ends, just we know don't generally produce all that much in fantasy football. I think Likely's fine, but I would much rather go that route in a stacking environment of some sort.
Yeah. What is up with Baltimore drafting 2 tight ends in drafts, and the second one end up being the better one?
Yeah,
we had Hayden Hurst with Mark Andrews, and Mark Andrews drafted.
Yeah, there was I think Dennis Pitta too back in the day was the second tight end that they drafted in that draft. I don't know. It's crazy. It's wild.
And this year we got 2 as well, and Isaiah Likely seems to be the better pass catcher. I guess, hey, it's more probably a coincidence that it's the second, but it's actual process that they drafted 2 and hit on 1.
That's right.
All right, we are rounding this out. We are going to probably be going with a best available wide receiver. No clear stacks from a Cincinnati or Tampa. On the bring back route, you got Crowder with the Cincy. You could have Terrace Marshall, who things just do not look good for him. No. Or you kind of just grab who you think has the best kind of breakout. Based off my ownership, you can see I'm very big on David Bell.
Yeah, I don't mind David Bell.
Curtis Samuel, Cedric Wilson. All guys that are going to at least be on the field if they're healthy.
Yeah, David Bell will be nice.
And then what's the Crowder thoughts right now?
I mean, it sounds like it's going to be McKenzie. I wouldn't be shocked, though. So I wouldn't be shocked if they rotate a little bit in the slot there. And then the interesting piece, I think, late in the season that people could run into is Khalil Shakir, who I think is a really underrated, undervalued player and prospect. But it sounds like they're playing Shakir a lot on the outside and on the perimeter. He's not someone that I think that like you should be drafting heavily or anything like that. I think he's more of like a managed season long pickup later in the season if his snaps increase a little bit and just see what happens. But it wouldn't be shocking to me if like he just is added to the mix and just make things even more muddied later in the season. So, I got McKenzie when he was cheaper. And I'm still drafting him at times. Haven't gotten a ton of Crowder. Just because of how really from the start, a lot of those, I mean, part of it was because of that Crowder injury and him not being able to play on the field early on in camp, but it seems like McKenzie just kind of ran with that role and he has it. And when we saw him in that role last year, he looked awesome. So I'm a little bit worried about, I mean, this late it's whatever, but I'm still a little bit concerned about Crowder, like really being that like every week guy. And we know that the ceiling for a player, that archetype isn't like that insane.
2-game sample size for those two that McKenzie went off, but his snap share in those 2 games where he was a full game player was insane, and he played really well. We do have the correlation with him. If Stephon Diggs, if Gabriel Davis go down, could we see Crowder play on the outside, or is he only a slot and like he's only then has a chance at that role? I think that's what
I feel like he's probably mostly slot. I think Shakir would be a player who legitimately, if there's like a serious injury, that they're going to force onto the field a little bit more. But again,
6 seconds, David Bell.
Yeah, let's just go David Bell.
Okay. I think he has the best chance of an actual breakout for this late in there, kind of like an ASB situation, plus getting Deshaun Watson for the playoff stretch. That's where my ownership is so high on him.
Yep.
Okay. We're going to get kicked out of this in a second, then we'll go back in. But would love to hear your thoughts, kind of how this team, how it played out, how we're looking.
I think it's okay. In hindsight, the Zeke pick was maybe we could have gone wide receiver there. I think a lot of it with me right now in these drafts is that like there's a lot more, and I mentioned this earlier, there's a lot more like muddiness to some of those other like round 8, round 9, round 10 running backs than there was like even a couple weeks ago where I was like, yeah, sure, I'll get one, either James Cook or Devin Singletary. It'll be fine. It'll be great. So that's part of it. I think that drove that a little bit, but I think that the team build is right. And I think it's fine overall. Like we're getting, it's just not sexy. It's just not a very sexy team overall.
I agree with you. I think this is probably one of the more uncomfortable running back cores that that I'm leaving drafts with, where our final 3 running backs may not be in the field for the first 8 weeks. Of the season.
May not do a thing. Yeah.
Right. And so that's leaving us to 3 of these. And like, I don't love these guys. I mean, I like Lenny a lot. I think Lenny can actually smash. But like Zeke and Damian, I'm not guys that I'm actually like excited to call home about. But as we said, we did draft guys that do have upside, so we're hopeful. I like our wide receivers a lot, especially with where we're stacking. When our first 5 guys have got 3 out of 5 stack partners, and like Jefferson, Higgins, Godwin, just a very, very strong top 3, especially if Godwin can start off early. So our wide receivers and our QB stacks could definitely carry us. Tight end, I think we're fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's whatever, especially if Ertz is healthy. This team is going to live and die by 1, our stacks, which is perfectly okay. That's always the case. And then 2, can something happen here with our running backs where someone breaks out?
Yeah, which I think in this sort of just general environment is fine. To really live off of something like that, you're going to have something, that's deficient in some way. And if we need Isaiah Pacheco to come through, if a Dalvin Cook injury is what really pushes it over, then that's just sort of how things go.
I hear you. Well, this was fun. I think this was good. I learned a lot. I think you had some fantastic, helpful takes, and love to see how much, the data first approach that you bring to this. And contrary to popular belief, like there's more than just late round QBs that you bring to the table.
Yeah, I know. People think that I'm just out here touting Davis Mills all day, but there's a little bit more to it than that. But I appreciate you having me, man. It was a great time.
Cheers. And so give us a little more information about what you've been doing. I know this past year has been a really exciting time for you. So give the people all the info.
Yeah. So back in January, left FanDuel, still partnered and stuff, which is great. But I left and I started late round fantasy football. You can get, I have a Patreon. I have a draft guide that I've been selling that's really more game theory focused. I did a lot of the ADP, historical ADP trend stuff that I talked about today is all in that guide and more. And then, I give player takes as well, but it's, I'd say like 85% like game theory stuff, because I think having that like baseline and that backbone in your managed season long leagues is just really, really important to win year after year, as opposed to just here's a sheet, draft off this sheet. Let's see what happens. So I have my draft guide that's for sale right now as well. And then I have my podcast, the Late Round Podcast.
Nice. I love it. Well, people definitely check that out. Lots of great stuff. You've been, fantastic and extremely helpful to a lot of people in this industry for a while. So great to see your success. For everyone else, chat, you were fantastic today. Thank you for joining us. Coming up next week, we're going to have the traditional shows, but if you haven't seen the tweets that were going out the past hour or two from the ETR social team, check it out. It is a hilarious video. Leone, Silva have kicked, Levitan and Silva have kicked Leone to the curb. He did not draft any running back. So the next high stakes, the $2,500 that we'll be doing on Underdog Monday night, it'll be live streamed here. I don't know if I'll be streaming or not, but I'll be in that draft separately. So I'll let them take the reins and see what kind of outfit I can get while I'm just kind of sneakily sniping picks left and right. Okay, this was fun. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your Thursday. JJ, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see all you later.